Hello everyone and welcome back to Beneath the Lift Tower. New jazzy entrance. Thanks you to Ryan Armstrong on Twitter for giving us some feedback. We really appreciate that. So everyone please like, subscribe and give us as much feedback as you can. Wow, what a weekend. I'm once again joined by Jess Kebble and Cy Stacey. And we should probably just crack on. How are you both doing?
I am good. How are you? How is everybody?
Good. Well, I'm not the best, to be honest.
Annoyed.
Yeah. You know, the weekend does determine how well I feel for the whole of the week and the results. Yeah, that one was tough to take. It matters, doesn't it? And when you get a result like that, a game like that, it has an impact. Should we just jump straight into the key topics, or do we want to play around with it a bit first?
I think we should just dive in on the big bit, get that
right. And I want to we preface this with the whole idea that we're going to talk about a referee, and what we're doing is entirely an appraisal of someone's professional performance. Where this is not personal, this is not an attack on anyone, but it is in the same sense that you would appraise a player, you're appraising a professional individual referee doing their job. It's nothing against that individual at all. That's not what we're about. So, but we are going to talk about decisions and potential areas where we think there's been errors. Maybe I don't know what you two think, but that would be my view. Should we break it down bit by bit? Should we start with the knock on?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was your view on that, Simon?
It wasn't a knock on. Simple as. It was not a knock on. It was not a knock on. It come off that boot. Then you saw Mitchell go straight to the referee, and he's like, and I have no idea what he was looking at there, but to take it to the TMO as well, yeah, they just both didn't have a very good day at the office, let's just say.
It was interesting because live, the referee actively said it's off the boot, so it's not a knock on, right?
Exactly.
Graham reaches out, go gadget arm, gets out there, scores the try. Really well worked, and to set up to get to that point was really good stuff. And then the TMO steps in, check, right? My view at that point is that there has to be clear and obvious evidence to overrule the on-field decision, because the referee hasn't even asked the question. He is saying, I can't see it on the screen, so you're going to have to help me. And then the referee, the TMO just goes, so it's not even on the referee, this is entirely on the TMO jumping in and saying, no, he's not that on. But for me, it didn't. I mean, it's not the worst decision I've ever seen, because it is confusing a bit as to where it's coming off of. It does sort of move from, I think it's TMO's foot, but he hasn't propelled the ball forward.
But they've slowly, over the last few months, gone back to letting the refs make the calls, where that one was clearly the TMO sticking his nose in and saying there's something wrong there when he didn't give it. So like you said, it should have been clear. There was nothing clear, should have been a try. Dixon gave it, that's it, move on, half time. But no, that could have cost us the game, because that would have changed the whole match going in at half time.
Would have been leading at half time, which would have been fundamental. Yeah. What do you think, Jess?
I think the call itself, take out for a second that the TMO, I think, agree has come in when perhaps it maybe wasn't warranted. I think the call itself is actually a bit more 50-50 than I think some people might give it credit for. I think that's really hard in that decision, in that situation, to make a call, because at some point Alex Mitchell does have his fingers slightly on it. So I think it's a really hard decision to make anyway. But I agree, at that point the try has been awarded, right? So if you aren't 100%, you can't overturn that decision. That's my understanding of what the laws are, right? That's the whole point of clear and obvious.
Yeah, well, exactly. And he does say to him, I can't see, so you're going to have to help me here. That's what Dixon says. And, it was all the pundits seem to completely say it's not a knock-on. I haven't seen a pundit opinion to say that one was right.
Also feel, though, I feel that if we want to think about it in that kind of sense, that first try we scored is a forward pass, and it's a major forward pass that was missed. So like I couldn't tell live because I was there live at HQ seeing it. So obviously I watched it back when I came home, and that for me is quite clearly forward. On all of the pundits say it's forward as soon as it happens. So I kind of looked at it as that score, the halftime score, was potentially the score that it should have been. Because I think that we didn't get a try that we should have, and we got one that we probably shouldn't have. And that's the margins as well. And I think I think there was multiple forward passes missed from both teams. Like, I think, again, it comes back to just, and again, this is not what on the ref only, because I actually think the TMO, in my opinion, had a worse game, potentially, because like he was the one that was asked to come in or came in on the decisions. I think it was not a great effort from the whole team, that, you know, the refereeing team, as it were.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of things were missed on the day, and I think that's the problem. I think for me, I felt like the issues with that game, it was one thing for that game, but I feel like it's emblematic for me, at least for me personally, of the issues that we've had with refereeing generally across the whole season. I think there's been a wild lack of consistency. I can't think of a season where you've noticed it as much as you have this season, where literally week by week the same ref is doing something completely different from one game to the next. And I just find it a bit bizarre, and I feel like it's a bit more emblematic of the whole refereeing. I think as a group of referees, and whoever it is that's in charge of that, need some kind of rethink on the way that certain decisions are being made. Because if we take away from this game, we think back to the Leicester game, you know, we had Luke Pearce counting those 5 seconds down, right? And I'm a fan of that personally, because I think that rule needs to be enforced. Saracens, yeah. And I feel like it needs to be enforced. And then I watched Bath and Sarries at the weekend, and it didn't happen.
He did it completely opposite for...
Yeah, and it may be something.
Gave him a warning as to how he counted down for him. Like, how has he reversed so quickly? I think, you know...
It's potentially something that's come up. I know that they have a ref review. They have a weekly ref review, and perhaps it's come out of that process, which is fine. But I also feel like that process is so closed off. Like, I'm not saying each week they release, like, this ref had done this error or something, but you at least need to be telling people what the broad conversations are on a week-by-week basis, because it's also the same. Again, it was Luke Pearce when he was hurrying Finn up and told him he couldn't take all of the time to take the kick. And then again, Bath versus Saracens, everybody took all there was at least one occasion I can think of where they wanted to take the full time to kind of waste time. I say that quote unquote because I don't think it is wasting time. And they wanted to take the whole time, and again, it wasn't called. And that's again a drastic difference on a week by week basis. And so I feel like it just, not singling out a particular ref, because I think things do come up in reviews and they're probably told, you know, this perhaps is not the way to do that, let's change it for next week, and that's fine. But I just feel like that's happened so much this season that it's frustrating the fan base as a whole.
Yeah, I think it's a massive example of it's another example of how the administrators of the sport just seem to fail. I mean, the end of the day, the referee is a professional doing a job, right? But they're a professional like all other spans of career, right? And if you fail to perform in your professional world, you don't get unlimited chances, right? The world is a meritocracy. You survive on your success, but you know, and not looking at a particular referee, there are clear referees that are known to make consistent errors and be wrong more consistently than not, but they get week in week out. We've got referees that have literally got jobs for life because that's the way they're operating, you know. And the RFU, professional body, took a decision to reduce funding in the referee a while back, 10 years ago. That's the wrong thing to do because it's fundamental to the product. Why are we talking about referees? It should just be if they make an error, they're all human. It shouldn't be the same conversation week on, week out. And, it is the elephant in the room with this, right? And I do not believe Carl Dixon is biased or purposely biased or would intend to cheat, right? But he is a human being, right? And faced with the fact of he's dealing with his mates, right? That is going to impact him, right? It's a decision he shouldn't have to make, right? And I don't get the idea of if he can't ref Quins, he misses a fifth of all games. Well, there's 4 games that week, other games that weekend he could have quite easily refed, and they're hanging him out to dry, but putting him in the position to fit. Because I don't believe those errors were anything to do with we saw it was Danny Carey's mate, so he didn't give him the card, right? And we'll get into it, but that's the perception, isn't it? That's what people see.
Yeah, it feels like
played that many times with Quins. Christopher Ridley last year was lucky that there weren't any big decisions, because Christopher Ridley was a former employee of Leicester Tigers. He shouldn't really be reffing those games, right? But he was lucky that there wasn't any controversy. But if there was, it might have been a bit more of a noise. Who knows?
Yeah, I still feel though like it's a slightly different, because I said every single referee, or at least most of them, a large part of them, have played at some point in their life, right? So there are going to be those kind of links. And Christopher Ridley's was an academy link with Leicester. I think someone mentioned that Sarah Cox went to university at Exeter. So is there a link with Exeter? But I feel like that to me is very, very different to a ref who's played for a team for a decade and has 200 plus appearances. That for me is such an outlier of a circumstance. And I felt like it wasn't Carl Dixon's fault. You get the game that you're given, and that's what it is. And it feels like it's as unfair on him as it is on everyone else.
In the real world, in the professional environment, conflicts of interest exist.
Yeah.
Right. And the task is to identify the conflict of interest and then mitigate it. Right. So I work in the financial services. I see insider deals, etc., etc. I see insider information. Right. I have to therefore declare any trades that I do with my clients so that they can say, sorry, you can't do that because you know information, right? It's to prevent errors. It's to prevent, I might not know that was the case, and they'll stop me because it would be a bad look, So like it's there. It needs to just be a very simple system in place, and I don't believe that's the reason the error is. I sort of believe the reason that is I don't believe he is the most competent. As an appraisal of his professional environment, I don't think he's the most competent refs. He gets given a lot of the big games, and there's been a lot of very clear errors, and that's not just Saints games. That's lots of games
across the board. Yeah,
I think no consequence. You've got to.
The thing is with Premier League football, don't they? If they're from the town or if they support, they're not allowed to ref that team, are they?
Yeah.
From memory, I think Peter Walton, isn't he from Northampton? He can't ref a Cobblers game or something like that. Yeah. That's just from memory. So we were short on referees, but the fact that he's reffing people that he still played with, that makes it even worse. It's not like he played for Harlequins 10 years ago. It's only was it 4 years ago? 3 or 4 years ago?
10 years ago, but
it might have been 10 years ago, but you just still, the longevity of players is so much longer now that overlap is going to happen.
Exactly. All that's doing is just putting any mistake he makes in the spotlight. It's like, it's because he played for Harlequins, and that's what most of the social media is saying. How could you have a referee playing that used to play for Harlequins? Ref Harlequins, but it is what it is.
And it's like you said, they're right. There's a shortage of referees, and unfortunately, with kind of social media and abuse and other things going, the Premiership is not attractive for referees to make the step up. And there are some that have made the step down, and there are some that don't want to make the step up because of certain circumstances. I still just feel that, like you said, you've got 5 games over a weekend. You could have had any of the others. Like, it doesn't make sense. It didn't make sense to me, particularly when a game has so much riding on it, because their win kept them in the top 4 hunt.
Exactly. And both sides put out strong sides. We were both predicting weaker sides because of next weekend, but both teams put out near enough full strength sides, and you're just like, that mattered, that game. And now that especially that last penalty at the end, that could have cost us. We've gone from 2 points to 1 point.
We need to be wary. We need to be wary of not having an amateur view of it. This isn't the amateur game, right? The referees at the amateur level are a different breed to those at the professional game. Those at the professional game are well paid, and they're professionals doing their job, right? So there needs to be an element of accountability. You're getting paid to do this. There needs to be a level of standard. At the amateur game, they're volunteers most of the time, or low, doing it for expenses, and they need to be cherished and respected more than anything. And they're a vital part of the amateur ethos. We're not talking about the amateur ethos. We're talking about the professional element of the sport. And as you would appraise a player who gets paid X, you would appraise a referee in the same manner. And I get the feeling, to be honest with you, that the way in which the professional organisation is run is a long way behind the sporting environment from a professional standing point of view. what the other review process is like other than sit down and review. You know, what are they actually doing to improve referees? And once referees are making mistakes, they need to be dropped. That's the likelihood of it. You know. The most controversial decision of that was obviously the Danny Care scenario. I think it made it really worse that Paul Hull, the head of referees, came out and like what the comments he made were just inaccurate. You know.
Yeah, I think it sounded like the comments that he made were parroting what Dixon's probably told him about his thought process and just putting them out there.
But it doesn't.
And at this point, you've got, look, there are a handful of kind of ex-players and kind of supporters who still don't think it's a yellow card, but you have an overwhelming majority that tell you that it was. And at that point,
his hand was in his pocket. His hand was there. His hand was in his pocket. He looked up and went, "Hang on, there's 2 offences there," which were both yellow cards, by the way. And he went, "Oh no, hang on, it's Danny Care." I'm not saying that was the actual reason because it was his old mate, but and you saw Danny Care's face when he walked off that pitch. He was like, "Blimey, I got away with that one." And the thing is, the guy that came on then went on and scored 2 tries.
2 tries.
So it massively affected the game. So
yeah, and I think that's it. Do I think that he stopped pulling his hand up when he saw it was Danny Care? Yes, just not for the reason that I think everyone else is saying. He knew he'd already had a yellow. And I do agree with some of the comments I saw that if you're going to send someone off for a second yellow, which equals a red, you need to make sure before you do that, because that has quite an impact, right? Think about it like a regular red card, right? You get that double checked before.
Of course, but he did 2 offences.
No, agreed. I still think it's the wrong decision, but I don't think that him changing his mind upon seeing Danny Care is actually problematic. I think it makes sense that he went to the TMO. Unfortunately, the TMO didn't have a vintage game, and so it compounded. Because I think, you know, people saying it's not a ruck, so he's entitled, you know, he's not offside, fine. And then they said it's not a ruck because Ram has gone past the tackle area. I said, well, he was pushed past the tackle area.
Because he pushed him.
He hasn't ran past him before the push has happened. The push is what pushes him past it.
Well, that's a big aspect of the point which Paul Hull made. He said that the push didn't count because Ram had already gone past.
Over Ram,
right. That's not true. That is inaccurate.
No, you can literally freeze frame the moment that his hand starts to touch his back. Right. And in no way, shape or form is he overran that breakdown situation. And so then you take that out of it. It is, and even if you say it's not a ruck, you're entitled to, there would be no offside line, so you're entitled to tackle the player. He didn't tackle the player, he dived off his feet onto the ball. So I still think all these different elements that they're trying to say, well, actually, no, ruck had formed, right, but he still didn't go to tackle the player. He still went to dive off of his feet onto the ball.
Well, if you break it down, right, so the first bit is they said, the push didn't count because he's run part, it was already past the ruck, so it was irrelevant. No, first of all, that's inaccurate. He pushed him before he went past the ruck. Ram could have easily joined the ruck, definitely made it a ruck. There would have been an offside, right? So that's a cynical play. So it's a yellow card. The next part of his statement is, well, there's no ruck formed, right? Well, if you remember, they've actually changed the laws that if there's a tackle and there is opposite players within a 2 metre radius, you can't touch the ball, right? And that goes back to when Italy, you know, pulled a trick on England and actively weren't forming rucks, so there was no offside lines. And Dylan Hartley and James Haskell had no idea what was going on, right? But so there is a ruck, there is an offside line, so you can't say there's no ruck and there's an offside line. There is a ruck because as soon as Danny Care touches Alex Mitchell, 2 players are over the ball in contact. It's a ruck. Danny Care then goes off his feet.
Yeah, that's the main thing for me. It's the off the feet element of it more than where he joined from. I'm like, you can make the argument ruck, no ruck. I said that still feels irrelevant to me. He still dived off his feet in a breakdown area, which is still, and like I said, for me, it's usually those are just probably penalty offences on their own. But at this point, we're 10 metres out from the line.
It's a line
and
break.
So in that area, it's cynical play. It's not. It isn't anything other than cynical play. It is the red zone. And so, you know, and it's like you said, like pundits on the day, listening to the commentators absolutely cannot believe it. And then listening to them after, they absolutely cannot. No, I don't think Danny Care did either. Yeah.
Well, and then we had their head coach said we were expecting that to be a red card and preparing accordingly. Their head coach said that. Danny Wilson, the head coach, said that. So, like all the commentary have said, it's a red card. It's a red card. Like two incidents created a yellow card. You could pick and choose.
You can't do like they do in like football. Got all the second yellow's got to be more controversial. No, it's a rule. They're laws. You broke the laws in the rugby. It's a yellow card. It's a red. He's off. It just massively changed the game. Saints would have probably gone on and won that. But Porter, come on, was it Porter? I can't remember his name. Yeah, he came on and scored both 2 tries at the end. That totally changed the game. He wouldn't be there unless they sacrificed another player.
Yeah.
So
I must also say, but I will also say I feel a bit more hesitant to say we would have definitely won the game. And the reason I say that, if we move away from, is that we weren't good.
Oh no, we were awful.
It's kind of as simple as that. And you take that out of it, we had half an hour where we had an extra player, and they scored more points in that whole period as a total than we did, and we didn't capitalise. And so I feel like we could have put that game away before it even came to that decision, and we didn't. So I still feel like, and this is where, look, Phil Dawson's not going to say anything directly in an interview for multiple reasons. Did he perhaps hint he didn't agree with the decisions? Sure, but he was still very clear to say that the onus was still on us. It was so far from a performance that we could put in, a best performance that we could put in, and I think there has to be, at some point, responsibility has to go onto a team who could not capitalise on genuinely being given chance after chance after chance.
We were dire.
We could have got 2 losing bonus points out of that, which would have taken some of the pressure off for that Bath game in particular. And we gave a silly penalty away right at the end in front of the posts. And so we took that opportunity away from ourselves. And so I still feel like at some point, those mistakes happened. It's unfortunate, but we still have to take the responsibility, especially as we're moving forward in the competition. There's 2 rounds left. Obviously, we're gonna talk about Europe next week, but you think about just in Prem, there's 2 rounds left. We need a 5-point win over Gloucester, and then because of that losing bonus point, not getting it, we're probably going to need to pick something up at Bath.
We need 6 points.
A win would be lush, obviously, but we're going to need to pick something up. I suppose the thing that does help us is all of those teams have to play each other. So Harlequins have to play Bristol, for example. So one of them are probably going to take the other out of kind of top 2 contention. I'm pretty sure Bath have to play one of them. I just can't think who off the top of my head. And then we also have to play Bath. So a lot can happen. We will need 6 points. It's just we probably could have done it by the end of the Gloucester match if we'd been able to hold onto that. And I don't know why it wasn't a good performance. These are players that have played, particularly the back line, 9 through to 15. How many times have they played together at this point? A lot. And so I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was fatigue or subconsciously having one bit of your attention on the week ahead, maybe because of just how big that occasion is going to be. I don't know. But I also think that we've got to take some responsibility for not keeping ourselves in that game better than we should have done.
That was a big game, though. It was at Twickenham, wasn't it? You got to think we played poorly. We dropped so many balls. We didn't convert. But we only lost by 9. Danny Kerr going off. Our team coming on. We looked quite sprightly at the end. I still think if he'd been red carded, we wouldn't have won convincingly, but I still think we would have won that game.
I do think there's a chance.
We were definitely coming back into the game. Now, I do think if he had been guided, we would have probably won. But you're right, it's irrelevant. The thing is to look at, right, why did we underperform? What were the causes? I think there were a few things. The number of unforced errors was significantly high. A lot of knock-ons, a lot of just, technical issues, breakdown, not getting over the ball correctly, giving over turnovers. Kicking battle didn't work very well for us. But those errors essentially led to giving Quins a hell of a lot of possession. Quins are a very good side that if you give them ball, they will score. So we handed them opportunity after opportunity to score, and our defence was shabby at times, right? But if you don't have the ball, you are going to concede majority of the time against Quins. But we weren't connected as well as we have been. I think that was the real big issue. I think if you look at the Northmore try, that's just a really bad defensive read on our own line. There's no ways inside line should just be walking through the middle of the midfield to score a try. If Dingle's there, if Dingle's there, does that happen? I don't know. And I think then the other aspect of it is we really lost the physicality. I think if you look back to the Quins at home game, Esterhazen was just in Ferbs and Dingle's back pocket all day. They absolutely dominated him all game. Whereas he was fantastic. He got them over the game line consistently, gave them platforms, and Marcus Smith and Tyrone Green, etc., created space with their pace. So they were the concerns for me, is the fact that we lost the physical battle and we made unforced errors that we wouldn't normally do.
Yeah, I mean, the unforced errors, they feel easy to kind of clean up. And like I said, if you get a game where we tend to have more games where it works than doesn't. So, I'm not overly concerned moving on into like the last 2 rounds. For me, what is most concerning, or what I've noticed also against Leicester, is the complete lack of competition in the breakdown area. We still aren't. I mean, we didn't get turned over as much as we did against Leicester. But as you said, we gave them so much ball and it didn't feel to me like we were doing enough to get it back. It's just, they'll make a tackle and all of them will just back off and get back into the line. And I appreciate that Quins are dangerous and so you want to have your line intact. I fully understand that. I just feel like I said, we're going to move on to like the game against Leinster in a bit, but I just feel like in a game like that, you don't compete at the breakdown, you're just never going to get the ball because they're not going to give it to you. And so we've got to try something different in that area, because there were some games where we've done it and it's worked and it's been fantastic. It just seems to have been missing for the past few weeks, and I don't know why. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe it's they've noticed something, and I'm sure they probably have. Like I said, I'm not a rugby nous by any stretch of the imagination. I just feel like if we don't change that next weekend, we could be. I don't want us to obviously lose, or I don't want to necessarily say that we're going to, but I think we could be in very big trouble if we don't pick some of these things up.
I think it stems from the physicality and losing the collisions.
Yeah.
If you lose the collision, Chandler Cunningham himself and Don Brown were constantly getting them over the game line. And if you lose that game line, you lose that collision, you're instantly on the back foot and you're going backwards. And you can't get over the ball and compete and slow it down. If you win that collision, you push them backwards or slow the ball down. It creates opportunity for your Ludlam or Laws to get over the ball because they're going backwards. They're not getting in good strong positions to clear out. And rugby's a violent, aggressive sport, and ultimately it's going to come down to the winning those collisions. You don't win your collisions, you won't win the game. That was something that we've dramatically improved this year, generally overall.
Generally, yeah.
But that was a cause, I think. Will Evans, I sort of picked him out before the game. He was tearing up at the breakdown, wasn't he? He's just so good at it, and we don't seem to have an answer. When a team's got that specialist, pilferer of the ball, we seem to struggle to deal with that. Reffell last week got over us, and Evans this week. I think for me, it's sort of a big statement in saying that every week I say either Dingwall or Moon is man of the match. And without him in the team, we struggled.
As well.
We missed the physicality of Moon, and we missed the organisation that Dingwall brings.
Yeah, I think Ding, and this is not to say that Litchfield will have a bad game, because actually I think he had a really good game in the elements that he did. It just isn't. It's not Dingwall's level, and that, again, nothing against him. It just isn't. It's as simple as that, and that felt like it really stood out to me. Some players did have good games. Slightholm never disappoints. Obviously, unfortunately, he got the knock, and so now I'm thinking that there's a very slim chance we see him this weekend, which is a shame, because I think we could really do with that kind of attacking flair and that attacking energy, and I think it's going to be missing, because he obviously failed that HIA and didn't come back on. And I noticed after he got back up, it didn't look good. He looked very groggy and kind of stumbling when he kind of first stood up. So that was a big thing right there. And this is what I've heard from a friend of mine. I don't know if it's been confirmed, that when Lewis was down for a prolonged period of time, he had to have his shoulder popped back in. So I don't know what that's going to look like as you move forward.
This is the
point.
So
we are carrying Niggles. We will carry Niggles and Knox.
This is the point I was making last week. We should have sent the kids, right? Losing Ollie and losing Luds for the biggest game in one of the biggest games in the history of the club is really, really disappointing. And
I mean, that's not me saying either that he'll definitely be missing. Like, that hasn't been confirmed by any kind of official source. And he did get back up and keep on playing. So I don't know what the state of that is, obviously. But with the return to play protocols, I don't even think it's possible that Ollie will be able to play this weekend with a failed HIA. But again, I don't know how quick those return to plays can go through. But I'd be very surprised because he was out for a long time because of a history with this. So I don't think we're going to be seeing him. And then obviously we're a bit troubled because Hendy was added to the injury list. Don't know what the injury was. He was on our bus at the weekend, actually, when we travelled. Because they came on and did like
you had an hour and a half with them. You should know.
Yeah. We did a Q&A actually, but nobody thought to be like, what's wrong? He looked okay. Don't know what the injury is, but then that becomes difficult because you'd make a direct swap. Slight home for Hendy feels like an easy decision for me, but then he may not be there. So yeah, it felt like that game didn't just cost us the points, may have cost us a little bit more.
That's why I mean, it was to come away with a point at the end of the day, but I would have sent a weaker side because we losing, resting the likes of Dingwall, Moon, and Curtis Langdon
and Langdon, yeah,
and Coles, yeah, right. So yes, that team could have won, and the way the game played out, they could have won. But it's almost like you're going half dry, not really realistically going to win. But you're taking the risk of Ludlam and Slighton suddenly being injured for one of the biggest games in the club's history. Sort of, I don't know the logic of it, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, it feels like
rotation, but if Robbie Smith, and I really rate Robbie Smith, don't get me wrong, right? But he hasn't played a lot of rugby, and towards the end of the game, he overthrows a ball for the line out, right? And that was often, it's not always Hooker's fault, but that was just an overthrow, and they turned over the ball and gave them the momentous, and they scored the tries at the end, right? Mm-hmm. If that's Matavesi coming on, right, or Langdon coming on, do they make the error? Possibly not. And it's not to pinpoint players or anything, but it's just a specific example of where I'm not sure there's much more we can say without being incredibly negative. So
I still think there were some. The main thing I would say, really, in terms of thinking about positives, there were still some good things. We know we can score tries. Yes, I agree. We probably could have sent a weaker side and still picked up that 1 point, because I feel like any squad that we take is capable of. Because Harlequin's defence was quite like ours on that day. They let some very easy tries of ours in too. So I did feel like we could have taken a weaker side that was still strong enough to pick up a point. Obviously, we didn't know what was going to happen, and we could have come away with the 5. But we didn't. We came away with 1, and so you still kind of think about the logic. I still think there were some positive bits in there and some things that we did really nicely. So I don't want to be overwhelmingly negative. You have your down weeks. We had a really big down week against Bristol, and then look how good it's been up until this point since then. We've had some incredible performances and some incredible matches to beat some ridiculously talented teams. So I don't want to necessarily say it's indicative of anything next week. Next week is tough on its own because you're playing Ireland. If we're going to be honest, you're playing an international squad, a squad that all of their players are rested because they've been in South Africa for 2 weeks and they did not send their best side and they got completely thumped. But it means all of the players that you're scared of are going to be well rested and ready and raring to go.
But not much fit.
Potentially. But then this happens every season. From what I hear, every season, those top players play a handful of matches across the season. And so when they do play, they put in... I mean, Gibson Park doesn't need match time, does he, really? Let's be honest.
Yeah, they've got plenty of game time. A couple of weeks is, when you're training with the best in the world, helps. It's not like they're sitting on a beach somewhere. They know how to play, and they've got experience in managing their squads, and they're obviously pretty good at it. I think you never rule out this side because there is incredible talent, and I think we still managed to find the edge pretty well, especially when Dingle came back on. And really rate Litchfield. I think he did some really fantastic things. The break to set up Ollie's try, for example, was really, really top notch, and his ball carrying is really great. There's a few things, but that's because he hasn't played as well. So and he's still young and developing. So there are positives, and it's another game on his CV to help him improve, sort of thing. In terms of the game, the atmosphere. Any thoughts? I mean, I know. Sorry, unfortunately, you couldn't make it. But Jess, have you been to Twickenham much in a Saints capacity?
I haven't been since the Rob Horn match against Leicester.
Right.
And then before that was obviously the Prem final. And then before that, the one before. I've been a handful of times. I went to Twickenham for England and New Zealand a couple of years ago. I do not know what has happened. It's gone so downhill. In terms of
It was very neutral, though, wasn't it? It was a neutral game. There's no way Harlequins have got 60,000 fans. So it was more of a show, having Jess Glynn there before. But I didn't watch it. I listened to Lenny and Graham McKechnie.
Yeah.
And every time there was a score by Harlequins, they were going mad. Like, oh, my God, can somebody take that microphone off that idiot? Because he's doing our head in.
Yeah.
There's no atmosphere. They had to keep playing music.
Exactly. They had to keep playing music, and they had to play music to start the singing. Like, we never have that in Northampton. We never have to convince people to do it. Like, we even had, there was even maybe 2 or 3 times where the Saint song rang out. We managed that without someone having to manufacture it over a. And I don't know if that's a regular Quins thing, because I've never been to the Stoop. I don't know if it's a regular thing.
They do it at the Stoop as well.
They always play the starting thing to the Harlequin. I'll actually think, like us, Quins are actually one of the only sides with a decent song, and having a Bob Dylan song as your song is pretty cool, right? So, but the singing in the ground wasn't actually singing; it was pumped in. It was sound. It was a crowd singing, right? So there wasn't really any singing. So I said that they don't have that many fans. So a lot of the fans are there for a nice day out. They'll nominally support Quins, but they don't know the laws and they don't know really what's going on, right? So referee calls foot in touch, and they're booing. Like, you can't boo a foot in touch. It's a foot in touch. It's black and white. Like, there's no interpretation, and they're booing that, you know.
Yeah, I think our experience
just makes a mockery of the game. Really,
I think
unfortunately, I know they're trying to make it bigger. Sorry.
No, I mean, I get what they're attempting to do. It just felt
never
dead.
worked.
And then
never worked.
And then we unfortunately had our experience soured by sitting next to a Harlequins fan who was an awful human being. I'm just going to put that straight out there. I think I'm not going to say the language on the podcast, but let's just say within 30 seconds she called Lewis Ludlam the P word, what you would normally call a cat. Again, I'm not going to say that everything. And that proceeded to get worse and worse until she was calling them the W word. It ended up at the C word throughout the thing. But at the same time, when you were listening to what she was saying, she had no idea what the rules were or what was happening. So the Danny Kaye yellow card, that's Courtney's fault because he's taller. Not Courtney's fault, my guy. He was. That's how tall he is. I said it actually makes it.
It's amazing how that happened, though, isn't it?
It makes it more of a funny achievement that he managed to hit him. Yeah, exactly. I said it made it even worse from Danny Kaye that he actually managed to make that happen. Like, he had to have been upright, which he was. That yellow card for me doesn't feel debatable from anybody. But it was, and so apparently she hated all of our team. But then every time someone scored, she'd go, "Who is that?" And I was like, "Well, you hated him 2 seconds ago, and now you don't." And again, she was drinking quite heavily throughout, but she was a Quins fan wearing Quins garb. But
I get it. Loads of
not everyone is like that. It's actually probably the first time I can ever really say we'd had a really bad experience of sat next to someone that wasn't. And I think every club has them. That's the truth of it. Even Northampton will have some fans where you sit next to them, you're like, Jesus Christ. Shut up.
I've got plenty sitting behind me that go week in, week out, and they have no clue. I get the one-eyed mentality. It's my team are untouchable, but if you're a proper rugby fan, you look and go, "Yeah, we knocked on there." You take it on the chin.
I was surprised with the crowd. I've experienced that every time you go to one of these big games, right? But I do applaud Quins for getting the fans in and trying to grow the fan base. And I probably experienced both sides of it this weekend, right? Because I had some people who were there for the Instagram photos. They were right at the front, and they were just pictures, and they were backwards and forwards to the bar all day, and they clearly didn't care result or care what was going on. But then I also had a young family sat in front of me with, and I don't take this wrong way, because I'm definitely one of them at heart, was a little chubby kid, right? And he was having the time of his life. He was a Quins fan, but he was just engrossed and cared, and it was just great to see, a young fan who hopefully now will love the game for the rest of his life. But he was wrong on a few things. Like, he was one-eyed. When Courtney scored his try, he was like, he didn't get it over the line. He didn't get it over the line because he just was desperate for it not to score. But he didn't know that on the line's fine enough. Right? But he was fully engaged, and you accept it. Innocence of children, and it's great to see. And that's something that comes from those big games because it gives an opportunity for a parent to take their kid to the first game, and then that spirals into a love of the sport. So you applaud them, and to some extent I applaud them for the Jess Glynn. Right? I don't know who Jess Glynn is. I had actually heard the songs when I was there. I reckon, oh yeah, I've heard. Right. I don't understand why I was on before the game and not at halftime. Although the halftime show where they had Masioki playing to an empty car park outside the ground, going wild, ticker tape being exploded into the air to no one, and they were properly going for it. Oh, that's hilarious. I loved every minute.
I'm assuming that normally happens somewhere in the Stoop ground where it makes sense. But at Twickenham, there's no space for it, is there? So it had to be outside.
It was an empty car park. They were like full on glam rock, that chest out. El Neilio, I googled them afterwards. El Neilio on guitar, like it was hilarious. Like they went full go. They just went for it. Like fair play.
I do get it, but it's in rugby terms, it's just a circus, isn't it? Probably 20,000 there with rugby fans. The other 40,000 were just will go out for a day out, which I get because they could now be rugby fans. But then it kind of spoils the idea of the whole game. But they're trying to make the right idea, but it makes it silly.
It's what I hated about. I mean, we got a drubbing by New Zealand when I watched England there, but also just we were sat around people that had been there. Obviously, like they'd either got discounted tickets or corporate tickets through businesses, and they didn't give a crap. They weren't there for the rugby, so it's up and down, and I'm like, I'm actually just trying to watch.
You don't get discounted tickets from them.
No. That's what I mean. Like probably corporate, like with businesses, is most likely, of course. But
that is the vibe you get at Twickenham, and because rugby is a smaller sport, it doesn't have the fan base of people who are massively into the game. So when you get any of these big games and or big internationals, it's people out for the day out, and it's good and it's bad, because you want people to have a good time, but you want the rugby to be the heart of things.
It's why I think it's much better when I've been there for like Prem finals, because yes, that will attract some neutrals who have already got tickets or they live in London, they're going to go. But typically speaking, it really is mainly advertised towards the people that support those teams. So I always feel like the atmosphere's been better there. But like, with the big summer kickoff and you've got an act performing before and they're fully pushing in on this is to come and have a really great day and a fun day out. I get that it's going to bring in people that aren't particularly fans, but it was what it was, really, isn't it? But we best look forward to what's coming next weekend and what that's going to be like.
Yeah, let's move on. Let's put it to bed. One of those days. Talking of one of those days, looking ahead to next Saturday, I mean, that could be a day and a half. What a day that could be.
I'm absolutely bricking it already, and it's Monday.
Yeah, I mean,
as of recording to anyone listening after the fact, but yeah.
I just can't wait. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about going to Croke Park.
I'm so excited.
Saints play, like the history of that ground, and if people don't understand the history of the ground, I urge you to read about it. And and I'll be honest with you, it doesn't put the British in the best of pages. That that is a real bad turn in history for the British, whatever the English. Yeah. But the history and the passion, and the all Irish. I love the concept of the ground, the all Irish sports, and how there's amateur. I'm not someone who like vibes on this person gets paid this, isn't that amazing? I'd rather he was a bank manager who's spending all his time trying to be the best rugby player in his own time, rather than talk about money and stuff. I think it ruins the sport. Whereas all Irish sports has that. It's amateur. And they're not really amateurs because they do get paid with the table, but the fact that it's theirs and the passion that the Irish have for it, it just spills over into it. It's almost like the building is a thing. It's a symbol of that passion, and to be there, to go there and watch rugby is going to be it's going to be something else.
Yeah, I mean, I had a bit of a worry at first because I know that there's some pushback, understandably, some pushback from certain sort of elements of people that live in Dublin and are Irish and don't like the English. Again, I understand why. Totally get that. I know there's been some pushback about having an English team there. Also some pushback about just having a different sport there. But I'm just hoping that doesn't kind of detract from the environment. It's going to be a scary environment because we're going to be outnumbered. I mean, we're going to be outnumbered drastically. But I don't know. I feel like that's going to build into the atmosphere. It almost might give the Saints a bit more of a push of like, we're so outnumbered fan wise that we've got to give something to those that have come and make this as much of a spectacle as possible. And I honestly don't take anything from the Harlequins result in terms of like, does that mean that we're going to be good or bad next week? Because I think it's such a completely different kettle of fish. It's like we've talked about with the East Midlands derby before, that like you can throw performances and where people are on the table out of the window because of the kind of occasion of it. I feel like that's the case next week. Like, my heart says that Saints are going to win because my heart always says that. My head doesn't say that, unfortunately. My heart obviously does. I just hope that it's a great experience because, look, if you go and you win, amazing, obviously. Because not just is it amazing to be in a final, but it's a final in our country. So, you know, pop down to London for the day. It won't be that easy because there's an FA Cup final that day. Bad planning. But if you do get there, what an incredible thing. And if you don't, you still made it to the top 4 in Europe, which is a ridiculous thing to be able to say anyway, when you consider where we were last year with no wins in that competition. It's an incredible feat anyway. And you if you do lose, and again, I'm not saying that we will or that I want us to, because obviously I don't, and I still hope we're going to win. But if you do, you've lost to multiple champions of this tournament and a team that, like you said, is basically Ireland. You know, it's an international squad, for want of a better word.
It is an international.
We'll be going as underdogs. We haven't had that tag for a while, so it'll be quite weird. So I'm not.
No, it could be weird. Yeah.
It's go and take on the boys. No one's expecting us to win.
No,
this is the old-fashioned Saints. We haven't got a chance. We're playing Ireland away with 80,000 Dubliners there. Yeah, sod it. Just go stick it to them like we did a few years ago with Jamie Elliott.
Jamie Elliott. Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, you know, it's what an opportunity. What 100%. An opportunity to write your name in the history page of Northampton Saints.
Yeah.
Being in the side that went to Croke Park and beat Leinster. Like, that's the opportunity that they've got. I am actually getting goosebumps. the potential for this game to be one of the greatest memories of your life is there. Like, you could be 80 years old on your deathbed looking back at the time Saints beat Leinster in Croke Park. And if they were rubbish, if Leinster weren't the side they were, it wouldn't be as good. Like, you want to go out there and play the best because you want to be deemed the best. If we pull this off, we will go down as one of the best teams in the world at the moment, right? So there's the opportunity. When you look at the actual team, I mean, it's scary. Ringrose is back, so that their midfield is phenomenal. Henshaw and Ringrose in the midfield is just outstanding. You look at the halfbacks. Ross Byrne is very steady, but he gets that team ticking and getting, as a more traditional pivot, gets their forwards on the front foot. They get quick delivery off of Gibson Park, and it's just bang, bang, bang. And they are so ferocious at the breakdown. Like, there aren't teams that play like them do. It's sort of like when Exeter played in the Premiership a few years ago, and it's like the referees didn't see the rule, weren't applying the rules to them because they all did it. Like, every single player fires in off their feet, and the referee goes, "Well, I can't book them all, so I'll just let it go." And that's how they play every minute of the game. It's just ferocious. And as soon as that Irish crowd get up the back of them on the front foot, the Saints are going to have to dig deep to face up to that.
I feel like what is beneficial is England beat Ireland in the Six Nations. And so you've got some Saints players, in fact, a decent proportion of them, who have that experience of beating those players opposite them on the field, which can only be beneficial, right? You know, you've got Mitchell, you've got Furbank, you've got Freeman, who they've gone and done it. And so you hope that this week they're pushing that confidence onto the team of like, it can be done, because Ireland were beatable, obviously, in the Six Nations. I think Leinster put in a fantastic performance against La Rochelle, but I wouldn't say their performances have been vintage throughout the whole tournament. In fact, I think in some of those performances, there was kind of discussion of, are they the Leinster of old? They've picked up as they've gone through the tournament, but there have been some performances there where I'm like, these are beatable if you can put it together on the day. If you can put it together and play 100%. And I just want them to go out and just throw caution to the wind and just go for it, because I feel like your best chance of beating them is obviously they're going to go in with plans and a certain way that they want to play, and they'll identify key areas, but you just want them to go in, throw caution to the wind, play our game, and just see what happens. Because I think your best chance is playing our game. Don't try and play theirs, because you will be second best. It's as simple as that. So you go and you play what we're good at, because when we're good at it, we are one of the best. And I think that's our chance. Our chance is just the Saints' DNA needs to be there in that performance, because it felt like against Quins, for example, we weren't playing the game we normally play. So I'm like, play the game that you're good at and that you know can win you matches, and you see what happens. Because I think if you try to out Leinster, good luck. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So as I said, they'll identify key areas. It will be a bit more. It won't just be go out and blah blah blah. Like, it won't be as simple as that. Obviously, there's a whole review process and looking at tapes from the teams and everything like that. But I don't know. I think that would be my message if I was. I mean, I'm not a coach, and I would never be a coach. I'm not that good, guys. Unfortunately, my knowledge is not there. But I just feel like that would be my thing of like, go and do what you know is good and what has won you games, because that is what will potentially win you the game. I think as soon as you start trying to play like the team opposite you, I almost feel like you've already lost at that point, because we're not the same playing team as Leinster. We've got different strengths to them. We've got areas of weakness in our game compared to their strengths. And I'd say the same vice versa. We probably have a few things that we're perhaps a bit better at than them. So go and do what you've done week in, week out, because that's what's gotten us to this. That's what's gotten us to this point, playing the way that we play and how we love to play and how we know can get us across the finishing line. I feel like that's your best bet.
Yeah, I think they've got to front up massively physical. They can't allow them to go through the motions of just generating quick ball with one out drivers getting over the game line and powering their way up the pitch. I think we're going to have to play territory massively. I think we're going to have to try and play in their half, pin and get them pinned in, force turnovers, and then go straight to the edge. But that's our strength. We're the best team, I think, in the world at the moment at finding the edge, getting the ball to the edge
100%.
and getting it wide and getting there right. So that's the game plan. Play in their half, kick them until you get your turnover, and straight away strike. And if we can do that enough and get enough score and front up physically, then there's no reason we can't. It's not easy. It's easy to say. It's just they've got some phenomenal talent, and to physically front up to it is very, very difficult. I think, with the what's his name, the former South African head coach in Taber, he's obviously taken over there, and they've changed the way they play. They're probably not as flowing and as dynamic as they once were. Josh de Vlier isn't quite as instrumental as he was previously. They're a bit more physical in that end, but I mean, Caelan Doris is world class, and it's a case of getting him down and slowing the ball down and just fronting up physically. There's no round.
I mean, there are going to be some tasty matchups in there. Like, I'm just so excited to see Gibson Park and Mitchell again as a battle. It's just, you've got two. I don't think there'll be anyone that can really argue against this. You've got two of the best scrum halves in the world right now, perhaps the two best after DuPont.
Yeah, I think
and so it doesn't get better than that in terms of like matchups. Like you said, Courtney Laws and Moon, Courtney Laws, Ludlam against whoever they will pick in those positions. I should know the Leinster team a bit better, but I don't.
Well, I think James Ryan isn't going to be fit, so that's a massive win for us. But it doesn't make it anything easier. That Joe McCarthy is an incredibly physical player. He has come out of the blue and he's incredibly good. I think that's the thing with Leinster, isn't it? Yeah.
Side.
Looking at the front rows, we've got, if we go with say Waller, Langdon and Davis, right? It sounds phenomenal until you hear the words Porter, Furlong, Healy, Kelleher, Sheenan, right? It's like just a long list of international.
Yeah, it is. But then I also think about Waller, like doesn't have the international background, unfortunately. But if there's someone that's going to try and front up against them, you ain't going to get better out of what we've got right now than Alex Waller. Like you said, still feel like he's retiring ahead of when he should, but I totally understand his decision. But I just feel like you put him against anyone and you know that he'll give it a really good shot. And like I said, Langdon, I think, is making a name for himself as one of the best hookers out there right now. As I said last week, I think he's the best hooker in the Premiership.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting.
We've got to wrap it up, right? I'm going to suggest a team. Rather than just go through it all, I'll suggest a team and you point out where you think I'm wrong, right? But Iogan, Langdon, Davison, Coles, Moon, Laws, hopefully Ludlam if he's fit, Graham, Mitchell, Finn Smith, Dingwall, Freeman, Slyton if he's fit, if not Hendy, if not Seabrook, Furbank, Ram.
Yeah. I'd probably start Waller. personally.
Start Waller.
Just for the experience.
I think I would start Waller because I think you need to make a statement right from the outset. You need to make a statement of, I think, it needs to be, we are giving this everything. And this is nothing against Iogun. I think he's absolutely fantastic. And I think when he starts to get regular game time, I think he's going to be potentially one of the best. I really, really do. I think you can see that in him already. I just think that you need the experience and the hard hitting guys to go in and make that statement straight away of like, yeah, sure, you've got this incredible front row, but so do we, and we're going to give it everything. So I think I agree. I think I would start Waller personally. And
I
then
also would, if Pearson's fit, I'd start him as well. But I don't.
Yeah, he hasn't played though.
I don't think he's going to.
You're saying that. The Leinster haven't played for 3 weeks. The first team, so we need to start them quick. So they're going to be. They might have had rest, but if you played the game, you need to play to be match fit. I'm not saying they're not going to. 3 weeks off. It's a lot of time.
It depends what the injury is for me though, because we think back to the Bristol game when Hendy and Ram played after long-term injuries, and I think they'll both be honest, it wasn't a good performance from either of them in that game. And so sometimes it's as much of a risk, the injuries kept you out for long enough, it's hard to get back into that. So I still feel like I'd start with Ludlam. We've had this discussion so many times, Graham versus Augustus versus Graham. So I think they both had so much. It's actually it's a difficult decision. You could go either way. You can make a really good argument for either. You can make a really good argument for Graham over the ball, a really good argument for Augustus with the ball in hand. They offer so many different. Yeah,
you could play them both again. Ludlam's shoulder.
I would even if he can't, I would chuck them both in and just go for it.
To cover,
but I would still see you just.
My view on Waller is that it's sometimes better to have your best prop come on, because more scrums happen in the second half of the fixture.
Yeah, right, we're all tired and.
So that's the only thing, that having that experience come on late in the game could be incredibly valuable.
I do get the argument for that too. As I said, I don't disagree with your team. I think we're just playing devil's advocate at this point of like what might happen. And then I don't disagree with your 9 to 15 at all.
No.
I don't think
we need to start.
I don't think Slatham's going to be there, but
I think they'll be a bit rusty. So I think we need to get some points on the board because they'll get into the game. So I think we need to start hard and fast, put some points on the board, and then. I should know this because he plays for us. But Tom Seabrook, is he an out and out winger or? Yeah.
That's just what he is. Yeah. I always struggle to keep up with who plays here and who might play here.
He's a bit of a he's played a bit of 13, but he's out and out winger really. But I think if you're going to start strong, you start with money, I think he adds that energy and that bit of
that may be the thing, isn't it? Like
ball carrying. But
Waller can do the big, the physical scrummaging up front, but then like you said, Iogun, he's got the energy around the park, like you said, and you want someone who's going to put in big tackles. I love whoever's dog that is in the background. We all love dogs.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It's not mine.
She's just can't wait to see Manny Iogun.
He puts in some incredible hits, and like you said, the hits and the tackling, like you're gonna have to stop Leicester on the game. Like we're going to be stopping Leicester on the game line quite a few times, probably, if we're being honest. So someone like that would help. So I don't disagree. I think we can probably go off the assumption that unfortunately Ollie is not going to be there. I can't see how he gets through the return to play protocols in time based on his history. So I think that's unfortunate. And then like I said, it comes down to what Hendy's issue was, because I don't remember him getting injured in the game. So I don't know if it's something he's picked up in training since then. Obviously, they don't usually tend to tell us what those injuries are. But you're obviously going to go as full strength as you possibly can. And like I said, if that ends up being Seabrook, again, I don't know enough about Litchfield. If someone would make an argument for him on the wing or him in the centres and Freeman on the wing, there's lots of different. They'll identify what they think works best.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Because Seabrook is the same. He hasn't had much game time, has he? He came back. Was it for the Tigers game? And then we haven't seen him again since.
I think it's a really good point. Maybe Freeman moves out to the wing, and maybe Hutchinson steps in, if he's fit.
There is
a lot up in the air with injuries. His back strain, and then hip issue for Pearson.
They haven't said much. They haven't said much about Hutchinson's back issue, but it reads very much into it. it's more like not a serious injury, but a niggling one that just won't go away. And so I don't know if we're going to see him again this season. I'd love to see him again this season. But then also you question, he's been out for long enough. Would you even start him? I still don't think I'd make the argument to start him just because of the real lack of game time, considering how long it's been without him. So, yeah, I do like Tom Seabrook. I still feel with the experience Litchfield had last week and having some game time, I still think if you don't have Hendy and you don't have Slightholme, I would put Freeman there and I would put Litchfield in there instead.
No, I think I agree. That's a really good point. I think Litchfield... I was actually saying it to my mate I went to the game with, that Litchfield is probably a case of an example where he's played quite a lot of minutes this year. And, don't get me wrong, there's a few errors here and there, but he hasn't let us down at all. For a young lad who's physically very impressive and brings his own skill set to the game, he has not let us down. And it's like that's even more like, and how he hasn't played that much. Young, I think he's a 19, 20-year-old kid getting to start in Croke Park. Oh my God, I just can't wait. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be.
We've got to
wrap this up. Should we get?
They've got to let people get back to their lives. They've been listening to us for an hour and 5 already.
Yeah, but I hope
we've got to end on the
Yeah, let's get some predictions in. Okay. What do you reckon, Si?
Heart, Saints 21-20, Head, Leinster 29-19. I hate saying that, but I just think it's just going to be too hard. But they hopefully prove me wrong, and I want them to.
Yeah, I'm going to do the same as you. I'm going to give 2 because again.
And this isn't really a prediction, is it? Then
I honestly think we've got a much better shot than people are giving us. And I almost feel that might benefit us being written off before we've even got to Ireland, let alone actually on the pitch. But so if we're going with heart, yeah, exactly. I'm thinking like 28-25. I'm going to go with Finn Smith's slotting a gorgeous drop goal at the end or something to get us the lead, because he absolutely bloody loves doing it and I love watching it. And then Head would say a Leinster win, but I'm going to stick with the heart, and I'm not even going to put a number on that. I'm going to stay with my heart and go with 28-25. Some Finn Smith magic at the end.
Right.
If that actually happens, I swear to God, I will scream out loud.
I'm going to will this into existence, and I'm going to say.
Let's do it.
I'm going to say 23-20 to Saints.
God, we're all going close here, guys.
I'm going to will that score into existence, and just hope that above all that next week is the greatest day of my life. I hope
it's going to be an incredible atmosphere and experience anyway. And then, like you said, if you win, and then if you don't, just an incredible amount of experience for what is still a very young team and some players who are very young and are probably going to be playing. There's something that you can take out of it no matter what, and that's always a great way to look forward. But like I said, us and Quins, we're both coming up against probably the 2 best teams in Europe, so let's just go and give it a go and try and smash it.
Exactly, that's a good way to leave on it. I think thanks everyone for listening. No, it's been a bit longer, but there's a lot to cover, and safe travels to all those that are travelling over to Ireland this week. Hope you get there safely.